Welcome to part 2 on this message of the WTO story, the fraud that was being perpetrated by Boris and Frost as a realistic alternative. It was never, as we've discussed earlier. The old ways of shopping changed considerably. Technology enabled people to pass information faster than ever before, whether catalogs or brochures, spec sheets could all be done, even videos could be done, movies can be done. All was available instantly and made it much easier for people to make a decision. So people were now able to order online safely and pay the price that it said on the tin. But when one orders on eBay from, say, China, there are 3 things in that tale. 1, you have to pay the transport costs. 2, you have to pay customs clearance. And C, you have to pay whatever duties apply. So generally speaking, many people avoid this and prefer to stay local unless the site they are using has a massive warehouse and logistical operation, which, take for example, Amazon does. That has now become known, in a manner of speaking, as drop shipping. Now, you could say that the border wasn't that much of an issue 25 years ago, and you would be right, very right. But let's put this quite simply. If I wanted to send a pound of nails to my cousin in Manchester 25 years ago, it was no more difficult than it was to send a pound of nails to my friend in Spain. It was make no difference. But now it does need all the paperwork for every product. The rules are exactly the same as they were 25, 50 years ago. But with regard to importing and exporting from outside the single market and customs union. The impact on the UK has been enormous. Many people had developed their dream of starting that new business. Some made homemade wines, some made arts and craft, cheeses. People developed a reputation for being the go-to place for specific items, and much of this business started on somebody's kitchen table. But some businesses gathered pace and many others jumped on the train. It was hard work, no doubt, but they were no longer dependent on having a high street presence to be successful. They avoided paying the intro money to the shops. Their market was basically anybody who spoke English and who had a need. Now, the market became bigger and bigger as the net took off, and though many only spoke English, being from the UK, their products could be viewed by somebody in Italy or Spain. And now the technology took over and it did the rest and presented the product to those new potential customers anywhere at the time in the 28 member states. Their customers could order for either their own personal use or they could order for their own retail shops. And most importantly, and should never be forgotten, the UK was regarded as a trusted source. So business flourished because it was easy and it was transparent. Customers could sample products that were either niche, better, or just cheaper, simply because the middleman had been cut out. I mean, microbrewers exploded and could send a case of beer with only transport to worry about. This meant that the middleman was completely cut out, as thousands upon thousands of UK people did the same thing, and the freight business picked up rapidly. They were having a ball. They were picking up a pallet here and a pallet there, and 48 hours later, it was in the UK at people's doorsteps. But now the problem, and it's the problem being faced now, and Frost knew this, Johnson knew this, Rees-Mogg knew this, Farage knew this, they all knew it. A normal 40 foot has 65 cubic meters of space. Just 1 cubic meter can hold, believe it or not, 59 cases of wine with 12 bottles in each case. So for even a small distributor, or a medium distributor, or perhaps a pub chain or franchise, this is nothing, as their dozens of customers could order a few cases each week. But for these new small businesses, it's a lot to tie up all your stock in just that one product. You see, their business depends on offering and sourcing much bigger varieties with smaller, medium quantity orders that the suppliers offer them. So they generally ordered a bigger mix and stuck it on just one pallet, maybe smaller bottles or different types of wine. Maybe they put some beers on it, and you know, that's how they did it. They just shipped it to their door. And now, however, is the pain in the neck. Each bottle or carton of wine requires, if they're different, a separate set of documents. So if a driver takes, for instance, goes to a distillery and collects 65 different customers, different customers, and each pallet has, say, 6 different types of bottles of wine on each pallet. So let's say, just 6. You know, a big bottle, small bottle, a red, a white, rosé, whatever it is. That equates to 390 different checks of approximately 4 pieces of paper each. Now, my maths isn't what it used to be, but that's about 1,500 pieces of paper have to be checked. They have to be checked. And they have been checked for the last 50 years. It's just that you wouldn't have that sort of delivery coming in from outside the EU normally, because there's too much paperwork, because one wholesaler orders, give me 1/3 of the container in red wine, 1/3 in white wine, and 1/3 in rosé. And so the paperwork is limited. But now, if one of those pieces of paper, one of those 1,500 pieces of paper is wrong, the whole truck sits and waits. So it's a nightmare. Now, as the North of Ireland remain in the Customs Union, they need to carry out those checks. But for the majority of businesses that we hear about in the news every day, despite the noise from the DUP, businesses have, by and large, already solved their supply issues. The problem was mostly, anyway, to be straight here, was associated with UK companies that had branches in the north of Ireland but didn't have any operation in the Republic of Ireland, Sainsbury's for example. The vast majority of goods sold on the shop shelves, supermarket shelves I mean, in Northern Ireland, that comes through companies like Aldi, Lidl, and 2 other Irish ones called Musgraves and Dunnes Stores. More than 89% of the goods are coming through those outlets. But to be fair here, the other option was a border in Ireland and not down the Irish Sea. Now, if you're from the UK, your question as to, well, why shouldn't there be a border in Ireland, is very legitimate, and I think we need to understand that. It's a legitimate question. The facts are that neither the UK wanted it, the EU didn't want it, the North of Ireland didn't want it, the Republic of Ireland didn't want it, the US didn't want it, and none of them to this day want it now, despite what the DUP are saying. Now, so they can scream and shout all they like, but the fact is that the majority of the people in the north sure as hell don't want that to happen either. And so the political football began. But who's to blame here? Who is at fault? I mean, and how can it be fixed? Well, my view, any politician that lies to their voters is at fault from either side. The UK agreed the withdrawal agreement because they had no choice. The EU agreed the deal because they had no real choice. The Irish, well, they didn't matter. They never wanted to leave anyway, but the vote was cast. What is being claimed now is that the EU is doing this and the EU is doing that. The EU are saying that the EU agreed to, or the UK rather, agreed to do this, and the UK rather agreed to do that. The UK are saying privately, come on lads, a while here, give us a break, will you? Take our word for it, man. We'll not allow goods travelling from the UK into the north. Nothing that'll pose a threat to the single market. Come on. I mean, after all, why would we suddenly change the way things are or the processes that we've had? Let's just have an understanding. You know, can't you turn a blind eye to it? And the EU thought about this. Remember that the Republic of Ireland, they were fighting in the UK corner because they know that if this protocol doesn't work, there could be a border in Ireland, and then everybody is screwed. And according to the former chief of the PSNI and the chief of Her Majesty Customs in Northern Ireland, they will have a much bigger problem, and their officers' lives are in danger. So let's not underestimate the dangers we're talking about here. So, what stopped the EU? Well, that's quite simple. Apart from the absolute incompetence and stupidity of Westminster when the Conservatives tried that internal market bill episode, and especially the proroguing of Parliament, everybody knew Westminster was now a cowboy town from the Wild West. It was game on. Boris and the ERG stopped it. They stopped it. Once the UK made it clear that they wanted free access to the UK market, the EU market, but were not willing to accept regulatory alignment of goods and services, the EU said, no way, Jose, no way that's going to happen. But why? The EU thought, hang on, man, we've given free access, but we know well, they knew from the internal market bill that the UK will try to get a competitive advantage. That could hurt the EU's industries. They're not stupid. 6 months later, the UK, as the EU thought they might, have done a deal that will allow hormone beef into the market if they don't have border posts. Remember, beef isn't just used in your local butcher, it's used extensively in the food manufacturing business, from dog food to baking, from ready-made meals to local sausages and chilled meats. Now for the solution. There is a solution. It takes balls, it takes courage, and it takes leadership. There is only one. But I'm afraid it's not acceptable to many of the people who voted to get Brexit done in the last general election. Either the UK gets back into the customs union and single market, there is no hope. There are no winners here. There are only just lesser degrees of pain. Thanks for listening. And before I forget, the ding-a-ling-a-ling, the bell, and the subscribe, much appreciated. Thank you very, very much indeed. Thank you.